All right, so let's start today's session. And this session is also streamed via YouTube, so people can also watch it online at the same time. And in the next 2 hours, the speaker will talk about everything, various topics, and everybody can ask any questions. So in this occasion, we are all frank and candid, and let's look at things together. I think there are many things to talk over, to think over, to penetrate. You know, this world is full of various superficial things, absurdities, based on people's illusions, desire, and all that. To understand and Dr. Ching, is to understand ourselves. So in the next 2 hours, let's put aside everything mentally. Putting aside all the issues we think of as issues. Just simply put aside. Let's talk over everything without any direction. That's to say, talking over this has no purpose. We don't say we want to solve something, or we want to get something, or to reach some state. We don't do that. But rather, we have no directions, no intentions, no purposes. And this is the first step of this lifelong exploration of oneself. One must start from no direction, no purpose. But you know, most people have a direction, have their purposes. The mind is always seeking something, to become something, to avoid something. Therefore, the mind is always restless, because the mind is seeking. The very seeking brings about this restless state. And there's tremendous fear behind it. Fear of not becoming, fear of not reaching, fear of not able to avoid something. You see, the mind is always trapped in that state. But can we put aside all the directions? So when the mind has no directions, the mind is free, isn't it? But when the mind is seeking, it's following or pursuing a direction, the mind is trapped. It must be trapped. And look at this world. Most people are trapped. So can one have no purposes psychologically, mentally? Can one have no directions whatsoever mentally? When one is doing one's work, one needs to have a plan, to have a target, goal. It doesn't matter. Right? Do something that, like for your job, for your work. But mentally, can one have no intentions at all? Perhaps only when one has no intention, one is able to observe oneself and understand oneself. For as long as one has the intention or the purpose or a direction, that direction will distort the thinking. therefore prevents one from understanding oneself. So it is rather urgent for each of us to do it now. We can't delay it. One can't say, okay, I will try to have a new purpose. Then he will still have purpose because he or she is he's not doing it now, right? I will do something. Okay, I will have a new purpose. Will implies time. When there's a time, there's delay. When there's delay, nothing happens. We tend to procrastinate all the time. But this demands one's sheer action now. One must act now, putting aside all the purposes. There's no time. Is that so? Physically, we do have time, right? The sunrise, sunset. And also biologically, we do have time. We grow up. We become mature. Hopefully we can. When we become old, time also exists biologically. But whether time exists psychologically or psychological time is something we made up. I will do something later. Okay, I will. So we keep delay all the time, then creating the time. And now we don't do anything. We don't act. When the speaker said that, can one put aside all the directions? It's not a question that demands the answer verbally. Okay, yes, I can. It has no meaning. I must do it now. Simply put aside. So let's do it now. Let's find out what it means to have a new purpose. New direction. See what the mind is going through. We can all observe it now. When we are all doing that, I hope so. When the mind has no direction, no purpose, there's only this moment, here and now. Is that so? When we can hear the sound outside from some machine, maybe you can hear the noise with the chair. Maybe can feel the support from the ground or your breath. Or sometimes you can observe the movement of thoughts. Right. When there's no direction, there's observation. It's not that I make efforts to observe. It's there. But when I have a direction, I run away. Right? Therefore, I get lost. I feel disconnected from this moment. Because here and now, everything is here. It's always there. But when I have a direction, that direction isolates me. Therefore, I can't feel and observe. So this is the first step, as we mentioned today. The first step, have no direction, so the mind is able to observe naturally. There's no efforts involved. There's no magic. There's no practices. And one is doing that seriously, earnestly, one may find, oh, it is very interesting, very exciting, because the mind has many directions. The mind tends to run away into some directions. And one says, I must be, I want to find out what happens, why the mind always run away. And this is also part of the investigation, observation. Why the mind always run away into something. Why the mind is so obsessed with its own direction, purpose. All of those involves one's diligent observation, careful penetration. We don't deny anything, we don't judge anything, but it demands one's careful observation without any reactions or emotions. We don't justify anything. But one must observe it as it is. So when one is able to put aside all the directions, there's attention, isn't it? Full attention. So the whole neuron system, the mind, becomes highly alert, just like an animal. We are all animals. But we have lost the alertness. Why? Is that because the mind is trapped in various directions? In that trapping, the mind has lost its natural alertness. When the mind is not trapped in any directions or purposes, the mind is totally, fully connected with this moment. There's this natural alertness. And that alertness facilitates one to observe deeper and totally. So this inquiry or exploration is not using thoughts. Those thoughts stay in the right place. It depends on everyone's alertness, sensitivity. And that alertness and the sensitivity can only come when the mind is in full attention. And the full attention can only come when the mind has no directions, purposes. And this dialogue between us also demands everyone's full attention. It's not that the speaker is talking to you. You and speaker don't exist, actually. It's a concept. There's no you, there's no me. Though physically we do have a body, your body, my body. That's fine. But psychologically, let's know you, let's know me. They are all concepts. And when each of us is holding onto that concept, the me, the self, there's no communication. Because the me implies self-defense. When there's self-defense, communication is not possible. That's only what is, what to defend. Right? Truth is not arguable. Truth is truth. We don't need to defend it. But when there's me, the self, there's always, self-defense, however subtle it is. When man is very serious look at the whole world as it is, people are living in various subtle self-defense form. Their behaviors are manifesting that. But here, we are communicating when we give full attention. When we are in full attention, let's know you, let's know me, psychologically. Because we are together, seeing the truth. Where there is self-defense, the me, the ego, truth is not. When the mind is defending oneself, defending itself, the mind is trapped in one's own illusions, ideas, its own images of what should be or what should not be. The very self-defense also implies the imposition of the image, what should be or what should not be, onto other people, everybody, or including himself. And when the mind is defending oneself, the mind must be in that direction because it has a purpose. Defend for something. Though that something is an illusion, probably. But when the mind is really in full attention, there's only what is. Nothing to defend. So when the mind is defending something, the mind must be in illusion. And most people seem to believe in that illusion all the time. So there's self-defense, therefore there's division. There's constant conflict, not only between people, also within myself. When there's self-defense, there's fear all the time. When there's no fear, what to defend psychologically? Right? So back to the question, can one be in full attention now? No delay. Act. as the speaker is speaking, you can listen to what he says without being trapped in the verse. At the same time, one can listen to the sound around one, the sound outside, or feel the support from the ground or the breath. What the speaker says is not something one make efforts to understand. It's there, isn't it? Perhaps the speaker's accent is not clear enough. You may make some efforts to understand his accent. But what he says, the meaning, demands no efforts. And we have been used to make efforts in our life, isn't it? Make efforts to achieve something, to be something, to reach something. Life is trapped in endless efforts. So the mind is no longer soft. It becomes more and more aggressive, neurotic. And more self-centered. Because the very efforts imply the self, activates the self, the me, and enhance the me. And the people keep making efforts to get the reward. The reward can be a pleasure of becoming something at that time, or get some physical reward, money, or whatever. We don't deny money. Please be careful that we don't say it's wrong to have money. No. Money is necessary, right, to live. So that kind of reward seem to spoil people. So people get used to efforts. Efforts, reward, or efforts to avoid punishment. But as we said, and everybody can see that, efforts themselves imply the me. Efforts themselves perpetuate the me. Efforts themselves is the essence of me. And efforts makes me feel it is so true. It feels that it exists. In other words, efforts themselves bring about the illusion. The illusion of me. When man is in full attention, feeling, observing, perceiving, there's no me. Everything is natural. It's coherent. But when the mind has direction, please see what is implied there. When there's direction, there must be efforts. One may get used to the direction, but the efforts are continued unconsciously. That's to say, one is conditioned to efforts, to the directions. But the mind keeps making efforts to run away. It becomes a loop running all the time. And that loop is always fueled by the unconscious effort. So keep running, being fueled by the me. Can one put aside all of this, just observe now? Can one be free of any mental efforts? Physically, when one ride a bicycle or something, some efforts are necessary, isn't it? But psychologically, can one have no any efforts? Just observe. See what the mind is going through when there's only observation, without any efforts, without the me. When one is really feeling, perceiving, like a moment ago, some birds are twittering outside. Oh, now they are still doing that. Also the noise or the sound from the machine. The mind is not traveling in verse, the language. Similarly, can one listen to this without being trapped in the verse, the language? Can one listen to what the speaker says without translating, without projecting, without interpreting using one's own knowledge or experience? We are not talking about knowledge. We are talking about something that one must perceive now directly. If one is translating into some idea according to one's own past knowledge or experience, then still the operation of thoughts. When one put aside everything, one also put aside all the things one has already known. Just put aside. Knowledge in our life are necessary. Like when one ride a bicycle, one needs to understand how to use bicycle. One use mobile phone or use computer, right? One needs knowledge. Or to study some product or subject, one needs the knowledge. But psychologically, do we need that? As we just said earlier today, full attention, new direction, is something one must act now. Is that knowledge? One can say, oh yeah, I know that. I hear from you that full attention is very important, necessary. All right, but you don't act. You must give full attention now. That action is knowledge, or has nothing to do with knowledge. When one is acting now, one is in full attention state, which has nothing to do with knowledge, isn't it? But one is not doing it now. Then one just merely translates that into an idea, into knowledge. But to really, no, to be that, one must act. Is that so? And when one is acting now, there's no time. But when one says, I will act, time kicks in. I will act because there's a gap between now and the time point that I will act. And during that gap, lots of things can happen. Therefore, I get lost and distracted. So can one live a life without time involved psychologically? Otherwise, knowledge becomes tremendous importance psychologically. Based on the concept of me or the self, various theories are churned out by different people, writing a lot of books, a large volume of books. But to compound the truth, as we said, one must be in full attention. And to be in full attention, one must put aside all the things, not travel in any directions. And all of those demands one's sheer action now. But we keep delaying it. We hope we can find some convenient theories or ideas that can give me some effort, comfort, or satisfaction. But to really absorb all my problems, sufferings, issues, I must act now to put aside everything. Simply put aside everything. It's not that I will discard that or cut off, not that. Just put aside first, so the mind can observe. But we keep delaying that process all the time. So that's one of the difficulties for each human being in this world. Life is trapped in the psychological time. We keep delaying, procrastinating. So, let this inertia of the mind. Perhaps because of that inertia, we keep accumulating various things psychologically, which in reverse perpetuates the concept of the me, the self. One of the most significant manifestation of time in our life is the past. Most people are living in the past. Past means tremendous importance to them. The past achievement, the past proud, the past trauma, the past hurt. And it seems to be rather easy to live a life with the past. And when a life is burdened by the past, one gets a lot of issues, problems. As we said earlier in today's session, one is in a full attention, there's no past, isn't it? Can one live a life in full attention? In full attention, the mind has no burden. Can one perceive it? In full attention, there's no burden at all. We don't talk about any theories. Please verify it. Verify what the speaker says now. In putting aside everything else, where is the burden? The past is such a huge burden for each of us. We don't say we forget it. Of course, you can remember something about the past, that's fine. But what is the point to carry that all the time with you? Right? We don't say you must lose your memory. It's not that. But the speaker mentioned that what is the point of carrying it all the time with you? Can the life be rooted in full attention? Then the past, with its stories, have their places. But it seems that the past is so important for so many people. It has already dominated people. Especially the past hurt, the past trauma. always implies the operation of the me. When the life is trapped in this timeline of the past, future, it is the activity of the me, the protagonist in that storyline. My past and my future. The future is merely a projection of the past. Okay, in my past, I feel that that's bad. I hope in the future, everything will become better. You see, the projection of the past is the future. So the mind, when the mind is trapped in the past, the mind is always looking to the future. So the future becomes equally important as the past. Please see it. This pattern is everywhere in the society. But the future is merely the past. It's a modified version of the past. It is the past. Because the mind projects from the past onto something called the future. You see, can one see the deception here? That state of mind is always disconnected with the now. So the ego is always active in the past and the future. But when one is living now, there's no future psychologically. Physically, like tomorrow, somebody will come to my house to fix something. Well, that future is something practical, right? But psychologically, there's no future. Can one say that? Next year, I will graduate. That's fun. That's something practical in life. But psychologically, can one have a new future? Can we see the fact that there's no future at all, psychologically? It's only here and now. When there's only here and now, one can see it, can perceive it in one's heart and blood. There's no burden. The mind is free of all the burdens. But when the mind is in the past, all the past hurt, trauma, or proud, or achievement is operating on me. And when one is at all honest, one can't escape from that unless the mind is free of the past and future. So can one, or can the mind mutate in this way? Can one have this psychological mutation? Can one live a life that is rooted in full attention? When the mind is in full attention, everything is in the right place. As we said, we don't deny We don't deny anything. Everything can stay in the right place, in their place, when the mind is in full attention. But when the mind has direction and trapped in that direction, everything becomes unbalanced. See what is going on. Not only events living, but the whole world. Why people are so struggling to make a balance between life and work, though there's no possibility to balance? Well, the speaker is just pointing to the truth. Because for most people, life and work is so divided. And the balance between them two is always a struggle, always. Because the mind has been trapped in various directions, purposes. Can we end that psychologically? The very doing that is the application of truth to life. Physically, I may have some directions to do this thing, to that thing. That's fun. But psychologically, can we be free of all that? Can one live a life, everything stays in the right place? In other words, can one be balanced? Not to struggle to balance something. It's different matter, isn't it? To live a life that is balanced, not to struggle to balance A and B, life and work and so on. That balanced state comes from full attention. When there's no direction, no seeking, no efforts mentally, balance is there. Because the neuron system is always working towards that direction. Well, we don't use that word, direction, towards the balance. But as long as one has the direction, purpose, one is seeking, one is making efforts, one is always breaking that balance and then struggling to balance. You see the trap here? The me, the ego, is seeking, is achieving, is making efforts. Therefore, it breaks the balance. At some time, the me, the ego, is struggling to balance. Can we see the truth of it? The me, the ego, is the source of all unbalanced things. Can one act now? Putting aside everything, mentally, psychologically, everything human beings have invented, just put aside them now. Here we can use an example. For example, when I read some emails from somebody, I got very angry, furious. And what I need to do? Reply to the email based on this anger or fury, or simply put aside everything else. When the mind is doing that, well, it can be very challenging for many people to do that when they are very angry. But when they are really doing that, when it's really doing that, the whole neuron system will dissolve the anger. And then one can come back to the email to see how to reply to the email, for example. So in that it's a small thing, but it's not small. It also demands one's full attention to break up that pattern so the neuron system can dissolve the anger, the emotion. But most people don't have that patience. They will respond immediately based on their anger, their frustration. And this pattern is repeated time and again across our life and the world. Isn't it? So even on that small thing, when one has the emotion coming, popping up, can one immediately drop everything to let the neuron system function fully, to dissolve all the things. At many times of life, one may encounter various emotions, problems. At that moment, can one put aside everything immediately? Not immediately wanting to seek solutions or solving problems. Can one simply put aside everything first? And then, when the mind totally healed from that problem, can one come back and then one can come back to the problem? Is that possible? When one has emotion, when one has reactions, one needs to deal with the issue of the mind first. Know that problem. Otherwise, this problem and that problem are intertwined. Everything becomes very complicated and perhaps creating more issues. Can one simply die immediately? Put aside everything. That's called die. Die to everything. First. Always first. And when the mind heals from all the issues, then come back to the issue. Okay, let's fix it. Can one do that? That's the application of the truth to life. But for many people, at that moment of the crisis for the mind tends to do something about it, rather than put aside everything. And then creating more issues, problems. come on, observe, find out. Find out what the speaker is talking about. If you don't find out, it's merely what the speaker says has no meaning. It's merely some words, ideas to you. But when you apply that to your life, when you have the issues at the moment, and you, rather than following the instinct to get involved into the issues, creating more issues, just put aside over them. Die to them immediately, to allow the mind heal. When the mind has no issues, come back to the issues to solve it. Can one apply this to one's life in every corner of living? Deal with the issue of the mind first. When the mind is doing that, the mind is observing. As we said, in full attention, the mind is observing. In that observation, the mind can compound the true issue. When the mind is free of reactions, emotions, and having the insight, one comes back to the practical issue, and one will find the brand new solution to it. I don't know how much do you feel connected with this stuff. You can ask any questions if you want.
I mean, I have a question then. So I find it very interesting that you spoke about non-doing and having no desires or efforts. But I was wondering if, like, seeking the truth or reaching the truth can become an effort or a desire in itself. And like, how would you go about that, or like, how do you avoid that?
So how does one avoid efforts making in seeking truth?
Yeah.
Well, so back to the question of the truth. Is that truth seekable or not? So, and maybe the speaker can ask in this way, what do you mean by seeking truth?
I mean, more like for myself, like I am very interested in these things, and I kind of notice with myself sometimes that I spend a lot of effort trying to reach the truth or learn about the truth or these kind of things, and then so I find it an interesting paradox that you say that you reach the truth by non-doing, but then I often feel like I am doing something to seek the truth or reach the truth.
So, for example, when one says one is seeking truth, what does seeking imply?
I assume that it implies trying to reach something or trying to go somewhere. Or
When it's trying to reach something, it means that something is already an image in the mind, isn't it? Otherwise, one can't seek it. So when there's an image about something, I want to reach that, the mind is already in the right direction, isn't it? Please see the implication that when I have an image about something, okay, I want to realize it, or want to seek it, or reach that, the mind is already in the direction. Because the mind has an image about something. And the mind wants to achieve that, achieve according to that image. But the truth is unknowable. What is known about the truth might not be true. Can you see the paradox here? I mean, when I seeking truth, it implies that I already have an image about the truth in my mind. So I'm seeking according to that image. Then I'm really coming upon truth, or I'm merely seeking something which is made up by myself. So I'm merely seeking something made up by myself. It's a loop leading to nowhere, isn't it? And that loop implies efforts, right? I seek something according to the image, which is made up of the mind. And I keep doing that all the time. And that loop is the form of efforts, isn't it? And it is always running there. And it leads to nowhere, isn't it? I don't know whether the speaker has made it clear or not.
No, it's a very good answer, so thank you.
Can one put aside that loop, in that loop?
I would say so. I mean, it's difficult, of course, but...
Means I must let aside. Please finish your verse, sir.
Well, no, I was saying that I assume that it's possible, but it's also very difficult, I think, so...
So don't say it's difficult. Try to find out for yourself. Because, as we said, can one put aside everything one knows about truth? Perhaps everything one knows about truth may also not be true. Truth is unknowable.
But then how do you differentiate this mental image of the truth from the actual truth? Or how do you know if you're on the right track or... So you're saying that when you try to reach the truth, then you are not trying to reach the real truth, but more like a mental concept of the truth, like how you imagine the truth. But then how do you know if what you are trying, or like you shouldn't try to reach it, but how do you know if what you think is the truth or only the mental image?
So we can look at this in this way. We are not reaching to the truth. We are not finding the truth. We are not seeking the truth. Rather, we are exploring the mind to see whether the mind can come upon the truth effortlessly, naturally. That's to say. So I forgot your question. What is the question?
Yes, so my question was that, how do I know what I think is the truth, is the actual truth, or how do I differentiate it from the mental image that I'm creating in my mind of the truth?
So so any positive thinking about truth denies truth. So I mean, when one imagines truth, that kind of behavior, mental behavior, denies truth. As we said, the truth is unknowable. So how can one come upon truth? Is that question, sir, right?
Yeah, mostly.
Mostly, right. One can only see the force. In seeing the force, the mind comes upon the truth. When one sees the force, therefore negate the force, the mind comes upon the truth. So one can only come upon truth negatively. One cannot come upon truth positively. So I can only see the force, see the wrong thing, see the loop. Then the mind will come upon truth naturally. But I can't pursue it. I can't think that positively. Okay, this is the thing called truth. When you imagine it, the mind is trapped in illusions, therefore deny truth. So truth can only be approached negatively. Does this make some sense to you?
Yeah, thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yes, please.
Do you think there's a point in seeking the truth, or do you think like we never reach it, so we may as well not try it?
Sorry, madam?
Like, do you think because truth is something that's unknowable,
Yeah.
but still we spend all this time thinking about the truth and what it is, do you think there's a point to all that, or should we just stop trying and maybe hope for the truth to come to us, or just give up on it in a way?
Madam, stop trying to think about the truth, because as we said, when we think about truth, we positively think about that. We try to mentally depict or to imagine what is truth like. But that imagination itself denies truth. Truth is unknowable. And that thinking, that imagination also implies efforts. Right? We try to think or figure out, what is like? What's like that? And then, in that thinking, knowledge is important, right? But as we said, as we see in this journey, can one put aside all the mental efforts? Can one see the force? Force can be seen directly, isn't it? The loops, the traps, all the paradox, all the absurdities. We can see it directly. Then when the mind is seeing that, at the putting aside all the false things, truth is there. We don't need to seek it. So every time the mind is, not every time, when the mind is seeing the false, seeing the false in the false, seeing the truth in the false, the mind compounds the truth. So truth is not something thinkable. It is something one must always perceive. But we tend to, create various theories or views or opinions or ideas to positively describe truth. But that act destroys truth. And there are many writers or people writing a large volume of books, selling the ideas or these school thoughts about truth, but they are not true in that way. It only tracks the mind further. But rather, as we said earlier in the session, can one act now to put aside everything else? The mind can compound truth unknowingly. And it's not something that, okay, I reach it, then I will be fine for my rest of life. Not that. It is always depends on one's sheer acting now. So truth is no knowledge. You can't hold it. But when the mind has no traps, the mind is free of all those traps, loops. When the mind is in full attention, free of all the burdens of the me, the past, the future. And in that state, what one behaves, what one says, what one thinks, embody the truth. So truth is something total. But when you think about something, that thinking is always fragmentary, isn't it? It's only a small part. So that small part can never represent the total. The total part, the total thing, is not false. That's why one must put aside all the things, all the thinking, all the thoughts. And then the mind can perceive what is that. Just like we have such a discussion today, we don't use any verse to describe truth, but rather we can use the verse to point to that. And what one needs to do is put aside everything and any specific way of thinking. The mind must be empty. Only an empty mind can perceive and compound the truth. But truth is never, cannot be held. Cannot be sustained. Because the intention to hold, to sustain, is still the direction of the mind, want to seek, want to defend, want to keep. Right? So back to the question. We can use this sentence here to point to that. Can the mind be quiet? Can the mind be empty? Can the mind empty itself? We don't say when forget something or lose the memory. We don't say that. But can the mind be not occupied by anything? Not trapped in any grooves, any specific way of thinking. To compound the totality. Truth is the totality. I don't know whether this expression has made some sense to you or not. Yeah. Yeah. Don't seek anything. Don't become anything. Truth is here, not there. When the mind seeks nothing, the mind can come upon it. But when the mind is seeking, the mind comes upon nothing. There are various enticements, that can make a mind sick all the time. The various enticements correspond to various illusions. Can mind not sick at all? When the mind is not seeking at all, the mind is discovering. Truth is not seekable, but discoverable. Any more questions? Let's continue.
I have a question.
Yeah, please, madam.
About letting go of the self and your own ego.
Yeah.
I wonder, because taking care of yourself, practicing self-care or self-love is important in order to make it through life. But how can you do that, and how can you be motivated to do that if you let go of yourself?
we can say it in this way. Letting go of the self, the ego, is the real care about self. So when we say self-care, what that self means? Is the ego? Ego cares? No? Or is the whole physical body, including the neuron system, everything. Everything is in a harmonious way without any conflict. To be that is the self-care people mean, right? So when can be that, there must be no ego, no self. But nowadays, well, the self-care or self-help, I don't know that word. I recently heard that word. Has been reduced by people to a direction. I need to achieve self-care. Please let me know some methods or tools that can help me to do the self-care. But when one is doing that, one is not understanding what is self-care. Therefore, what one does is called self-care by oneself, but it's not self-care because one has a direction, and when that's direction, there will be various people come here. Oh, here I have methods. Follow me, please. And the people write books, and then a new business comes. But when one understands what is the essence of self-care, only when the me is absent, when the ego is absent, care is there. Therefore, there's self-care, not only self-care, but also care for everybody as human beings. And then self-care is achieved unknowingly by non-doing. Otherwise, when one has this purpose to achieve self-care, the speaker is questioning whether one has achieved it or not, or merely one gets some superficial satisfaction or pleasure from it, but actually nothing is really solved. Because the me, the ego, is still operating there. So we can say there's no contradiction when we understand what is the true self-care. When I care about, when I can care about myself, I care about everybody. And only when the mind is free of the ego, me, the mind can do that naturally. Otherwise, well, the me, the ego, is always doing the opposite. Bringing more issues, contradictions, and creating the business of self-care, but still, perpetrating various traps. Does this make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I also have a question, connected to your question, because so I was thinking that, if you let go of your ego, then couldn't you just be laying on your bed all day not doing anything? So because I feel like if you don't have an ego and you don't have desires, or you don't have a drive to do things, then wouldn't you just not do anything in the sense that you don't have any goals, or you don't have, because I feel like I really agree with what you say, that we shouldn't give in to our desires and these kind of things, but I also feel like we do need to have goals to a certain degree to do things in life, but how do you find the balance between too much desire and too little desire, or if you know what I mean?
The speaker thinks he understands what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
So, first of all, we don't condemn desires. We don't say one should have no desires. That's absurd. Because when we condemn desire, we fail to understand what is desire. And obviously, one's life cannot be dominated by desire. Otherwise, it is also catastrophic. But rather, can one understand desire completely? What is desire?
I would say like a drive to achieve something or to do something, right? Or that's how I would define desire.
Desire implies will. Right. The will. Wanting to achieve something, wanting to possess something, wanting to have something, or wanting to avoid something. So that's strong intention behind it, a purpose, or a target, or a direction. Let's look at it. Let's perceive what does desire involves. Again, we don't deny it, we don't condemn it, we don't say, oh, desire is bad, we don't say that. But rather to observe when the mind has a desire arising mentally, what is actually going on within the mind. For example, someone comes to an electronic shop, and he comes upon a very big television, or very thin, very modern, very looks very awesome, and also there's videos inside playing, very clear, crystal clear videos with very striking colors. Wow, how marvelous it is! So that guy stands there in front of the TV, looking at the TV for a while, and even touch it. Wow, see the very beautiful and very stylish the outlook. And oh, not very heavy. Wow, a very big screen. You see, and also the content of the video bring about a lot of sensations, right? When oh wow, nice, this TV is very nice. Then thoughts come along, saying, I want to possess it. Desire arises, isn't it? Do you see that? At first, when compound that TV, touch it, see the content of it, wow, the color, the beautiful outlook, and then thoughts come along, saying, I want to possess it. And then at that moment, the mind is no longer connecting the TV, but rather the mind is trapped in the desire to possess it. And this process is repeated time and time again in our life, isn't it? There's contact, then there's sensation. Contact, not only physical contact, but also when you see it, when you hear it, it is already contact, isn't it? And then there's sensation. Can one stop there? Not letting the thoughts come along to possess it. This means that one must observe the total movement of thoughts if one doesn't observe it, thoughts come along immediately with that desire, with the intention to possess it. And then all the compulsions go towards it. Then desire becomes something very influential, powerful, or irresistible. Can we observe this phenomenon in one's living in every corner? We observing, not condemning. In that observation, one can be free of any unnecessary desires. In that observation, there's no me, there's no ego, but there's tremendous diligence. It's not that one thinks that, oh, one just lying on the bed doing nothing. That's not mean that one is devoid of the ego. But rather, one applies one is very diligent to implicate the mind in one's living, so the mind can observe what is going on without being trapped. One is doing that, one is free of the ego. And when the ego is operating, one observe it, end it. It's not that, okay, I just doing nothing, lying on bed. That does not mean that one is free of the ego. Many people lying on bed, but still the ego is there. But rather, maybe your question can be rephrased in this way. What is the source that drives people to do things? Nowadays, people depend on the goal, the reward, or the achievement, which is self-centered, egoistic, and they want to rely on that to have the energy to do things. But the ego creates a lot of issues, problems. But can one have energy without being trapped by ego? The speaker says here, when one is really diligently doing that in the ego, there's tremendous energy, much more than you think. So when there's tremendous energy, you can't lie on bed because energy drives you to do something. Just like animal can't lie on bed all the time. Animal must be active because they have the energy. And can a human being have that energy? So opposite to what you think. But when one is able to end the ego, one has a tremendous energy. Because because the ego, the inner conflict consumes a lot of energy. And our desire to succeed or desire to achieve something can boost us to do something in a short bout. But it won't last long. Everybody knows that. And that energy is also very conflicting, short-lived. But when one is able to be free of the ego, everything stays in the right place. The energy is abundant. And then energy, the speaker doesn't want to bring up a new topic, but we can use the one word here, simply. That energy, that abundant energy, is a passion for everything. So when the mind can empty itself, the mind becomes very quiet. At the same time, the mind becomes very energetic. So being quiet and being energetic is one thing, just like an animal, like a dog, or a cat. Oh, being quiet and being energetic is one thing. But now, for most people, life is trapped by the egocentric living. Therefore, the mind is not quiet, and a lot of energy has been consumed by the endless conflict struggle. And life is restless. You see the difference. One is quiet and energetic. The other is not quiet, not energetic, but restless. Can one compound the state of being quiet and energetic?
I would say so, yes. So, yes, I think so.
Apply it to your life to see what happens, see what will happen. That's very important because here we don't talk about any theories. It demands one to verify it in one's living. When one is doing that, one may find how dangerous the environment has become. Everything is perpetuating the ego, the me. Well, when one is really applying the truth to living, one becomes utterly sensitive, alert to everything around one. And no questions. And ask anything you want.
I have maybe just some practical, I need some advice, I think. Because when I try to meditate, my mind has difficulty being quiet. Do you have advice on how to do that?
Oh, sorry, madam.
How to quiet your mind? How to make sure you're not drifting off to issues in your life and stuff like that?
Madam, the solution lies beyond that meditation practice, which means that one must give attention, diligence to understand all of those fundamental topics. That understanding will change the mind unknowingly. And when you back to the meditation, in that way, sitting meditation or breathing exercise, you'll find the change. But if one doesn't do this groundwork, the deep penetration and the exploration and understanding these fundamental topics, merely meditating in that way, can't help one go very far. And when one is doing like this, examining the topics, going deeply, adequately, carefully, cautiously, without being trapped. The way of doing that is the true meditation. At the same time, the breathing exercise stays in the right place. So this is something still unknowable. The speaker just mentioned that if one is willing to go deep and understand all those fundamental topics completely. And this will, you will feel the change when you sitting in meditation to focus on, to feel the breath and so on. You'll see that change immediately. But this part is not something people often do, rarely do. They tend to, to follow some methods. But as we said, to effect a change in the mind, one must put aside all the issues first, understand deeply, adequately, all those fundamental topics. Today we covered the topic of time, and there are other topics like fear, pleasure, death, the nature of thoughts, and what is energy? What does mean compassion, love? When one give attention and be diligent in understanding those topics fairly deeply, everything will change uninvited. As we said here, it's not the speaker. It's not speaker talking to you. You and speaker don't exist, but rather we inquire together. In that careful and objective and complete inquiry, the mind changes itself. So when we give new directions, when we put aside all the purposes, the mind will change. So, madam, drop that problem for a while. Then you can come back later to see. Perhaps it will go away naturally.
All right.
Yeah.
I'll try.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any questions? Everyone can ask. That's no boundary. Okay. Because what we need to just be open, honest.
I actually have one question.
Yes.
One of the quotes on the paper, the one about when highly intelligent people they diligently apply truth to life, and then it also talks about fairly intelligent people and talks about mediocre people. And so I just find it a bit interesting that the text differentiates between intelligent people and somewhat intelligent people and then mediocre people. So do you think that it's like some people just cannot understand the truth, or I have a bit of trouble understanding these quotes because I feel like it really differentiates between people based on their intelligence, I assume, but maybe I'm not understanding it correctly. So if you could reflect a bit on that.
Sorry?
If you could just explain this quote
Okay.
a little bit more.
Let's do it now. So, when highly intelligent people hear truth, they diligently apply truth to life. When fairly intelligent people hear truth, they feel that truth sometimes exists, sometimes not. When mediocre people hear truth, they laugh out loud. Truth sounds absurd and ridiculous to those people. When we understand this paragraph, first of all, we need to put aside all the images for anybody. We don't categorize people. It's something very easy to do. Right? We want to use some labels to categorize people. Oh, these people are smart. These people are not smart. We don't do that. But when one is really quiet, sensitive, one can observe, indeed, different people's mental status are there. Some people are fairly easy to understand those things. They feel it is true. Okay, I need to change it immediately. So apply what I found, what I perceive to my life. The first part. The second part is that there's still some people still quite okay, but one is still trapped in some directions. I mean, partially conditioned. That's why sometimes they can feel that, okay, what I said is true. But sometimes when the mind is not in the right state, they can't feel, what you said. So people just keep swaying. And this represents a very large part group. And last group is these people who are completely conditioned to the ego, to life, to their selfish life, seeking pleasure, fulfillment from various things. And then when they hear this, they feel absurd. They say, hey, what are you talking about? I don't understand what you mean. Well, even I feel what you said is absurd, ridiculous. So that's the general case. But of course, in the ancient Chinese text, it used 3 words: upper, middle, lower, and to simply describe this phenomenon without any division. You can't say, okay, who belongs to the upper, who belongs to the middle. That way of thinking is very destructive. Don't think about any specific person. But in general case, we can describe this phenomenon by making into the 3 categories. But there's no division. We don't say that, well, the first category is clearly differentiated from the second one, also the third one. It's not that. So maybe some speaker can rephrase in this way. We can describe the phenomenon by referring to some categories without making divisions. But at the same time, one must be cautious that when reading this category, this kind of descriptions with categories, one should not make divisions based on categories. I don't know whether this makes sense to you or not, because it is something rather subtle. So the Lao Tzu described in this way, using the categories, but there's no divisions. The general case that is, some people are very able to understand what is being said, and they apply it to their life diligently. Some people sometimes can understand well, sometimes can be confused, and but they can also be diligent, and to come back to the first category. But there's still some people who are utterly conditioned. Therefore, they are totally disconnected. They won't even listen to this. They will laugh about it, laugh at it.
But then does this mean that some people just cannot apply the truth to their life, or does this mean that for some people it's a lot more difficult than for other people?
It could be. We can perceive that, but we don't make any conclusions about that. So because I think is that clear, Joyce? So this place we must be very careful. We perceive that, indeed, some people can easily understand and apply it to their life. Some people can be very difficult to do that. But sometimes we don't make any conclusions on that. Does this make sense to you? Not?
Yes, it does. But I have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
About same verse. Because if truth is something that's unknowing, how can you apply it to your life? And isn't it, I kind of feel like the people who are described as mediocre, it's kind of a virtuous reaction to the truth, if it's unknowing, to just laugh at it. Does that make sense?
Sorry, madam, what is your last sentence?
Like if when mediocre people hear the truth, they laugh out loud and it sounds absurd and ridiculous. Isn't that kind of a logical reaction to truth if truth is unknowing or unknowable?
You know, like, so when we are talking here, for example, so the speaker is using some verse to point to the truth. Then when the people who are able to understand, he or she also perceive the truth. But when he or she cannot, he merely trapped in the verse, and he began to imagine the verse. He can't figure out. The truth is unknowable, but it depends on one to put aside all the verse. One can perceive directly. Just as we said in today's session, one must be in full attention to look, to feel. Everything's there. So apply to truth to life is to be in full attention. Right? But for people who are so conditioned, their mind is totally dominated by language, by verse. When the speaker is telling something to them, for example, they can't see the truth. They can't rely on verse to point the truth. They immediately interpret, translate based on the verse. Therefore, they can't figure out what is that. And they may interpret it totally wrongly. They feel absurd and laugh. And that they can't really apply truth to life because they don't know how to, or they don't know what is full attention. So hear truth means that I really hear what you mean. I'm not trapped in by what you said, but I hear what you mean because I also perceive it. And that's the hear truth. But when mediocre people hear truth, they don't hear it. What they hear is the verse and their own interpretation and manipulation by thoughts. Does this make sense to you?
Yeah, it does, yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, one who keeps speculating about different people is cunning. One who understands oneself is intelligent.
C33.
One who outperforms others is forceful. One who empties oneself is resilient. You know, this business world, or the whole society is based on business, commercial, is full of cunningness. To make money, the people keep speculating about different people, try to earn more cash from their pocket, and then everything becomes more and more cunning. And this is what is going on in the whole world, also in the society. But speculating about different people is different from understanding myself. Understanding myself means honesty, candid, frank, and humility. And when the mind understands oneself, all the kindness comes to an end. But it's easier to speculate about other people for a purpose than understand oneself without any purpose. Because understand myself demands one to be in full attention, which is free of all directions and purposes, psychologically. In this whole world, it's laid down by various patterns, and people are trapped there. People are always competing each other, right? People keep competing against each other. One want to outperform the other, and everything becomes more and more forceful and aggressive. But can one end me, the ego? That's perhaps the greatest outperforming ever. That's to empty oneself completely. Otherwise, people have wasted their energy into endless competition. Comparing each other and doing more and more. Technologically, we need a competition to let the technology be advanced, developed. But psychologically, can one be free of all competition? But many people are very competitive psychologically. They don't say it. They don't express it. But psychologically, they are very actively competitive, which consumes a lot of energy and bring about conflict, fear, fear of not being able to perform well, stress, and so on. Can one empty the mind? Or can the mind empty itself? Without any competition, psychologically. When one see the futility of this psychological competition and so on. You see, all those things are counterintuitive. And let's say the next sentence. Counterintuitiveness is the movement of truth.
But here counterintuitiveness refers to non-doing, if I'm understanding this correctly?
Yes, you can see that. It's similar because the mind tends to do things all the time. But non-doing is something counterintuitive. It must come from one's total understanding about the mind, the life, and everything. The intuitive things come from the compulsion prepared by various things. But the counterintuitive things come from the total understanding of everything. When one acts upon totality, there won't be any conflict. But when merely react, when one merely act upon intuitiveness, which is react actually, right? because it's based on various senses, thoughts, ideas. It always brings conflict, problems, issues. So Komplein act upon totality. That's the counterintuitiveness. And when one is acting from the totality, it's not from the me, the ego. The mind is soft naturally. So that's why softness is the effect of truth. When there's me, the ego is doing, it's becoming harsh, hard. There's endless competition, fight between people or within oneself, the conflict. So the mind becomes hard, very hard. A hard mind, well, has too many issues. But when the mind is really soft, life is truthful. When the mind is soft, there's care. Not only self-care, care for everybody. Any more questions?
I don't think so.
So let's finish today's session. Okay.